but we just don't have any choice. We have to have AI and robotics in our healthcare system, and we need it yesterday.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Particle Accelerator Podcast, where we talk to future-thinking business leaders about how to accelerate their business and grow their team. I'm here today with Martin. Martin, would you introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Martin Sbriglio, CEO of Ryders Health Management and a managing member of Ryders Partners in Connecticut. We own and operate 8 skilled nursing facilities in Connecticut doing long-term care and subacute care. We have a different division where we do some commercial property, multifamily, and some development.
Cool. Well, let's go back. I'd love to get to know you a little better. And one way I do that is I ask, what was your first job? I mean, how did you make your very first dollar as a person? For me, it was a paper route. But what was your first job?
Cutting grass for the family business in Chester, Connecticut. I was young, and frankly, there was a sitting lawnmower, small Sears sitting lawnmower that my grandfather gave us, and the only thing I could drive legally at 10 or 11 or 12 years old, so I cut grass with it.
That's really cool. I guess that was before they decided to start building in the cup holder into the riding lawnmower like they do these days.
Yeah, no, it was the 1960s, a little different.
Yeah, for sure. Well, what toy or hobby did you have as a child that inspired what you do career-wise today?
In high school, I wrestled, and it's still a tough sport. My 17-year-old just started, and I'm trying to work out with him. That's a rude awakening. Uh, but I went to Suffield Academy boarding school for 4 years, and that really taught me the commitment necessary to work hard and succeed, and really the amount of sacrifice that success frequently requires. And losing weight in those days in the 70s when I wrestled was allowed and wasn't really controlled. So I'm the same height I was in high school, and I was spent 30, 40 pounds to make weight. To do that was with supposedly a growing kid. That was a lot of work and a lot of sacrifice. And it was worth it. Still love wrestling, Olympic wrestling, collegiate wrestling, high school wrestling. But the amount of sacrifice, that's what it taught me to inspire me to do what I needed to do.
Great. Yeah, I was a wrestler in high school as well, but after high school, um, it wasn't in the cards for me.
Right. Yeah. Well, times have changed today with wrestling. I mean, people go to Ultimate Fighting. To wrestle into your 30s and 40s, surprisingly, people are doing it. Even in the Olympics, it's shocking to see how old these guys are.
Yeah, well, and then with the popularity of BJJ, my 10-year-old is in jujitsu, and I think the funniest story I can tell there is my wife couldn't even have UFC on in the room. Like, oh, those guys are just wallering all over each other. You have to change it. I can't watch that. But then we put our 10-year-old in jujitsu, and now she's like, Connor Murphy's going to fight this weekend. I think we might need to rent that, like a complete 180 shift, to like, now that your kid is doing it. And I've participated a few times, and what I really liked was the mobility, like getting back some of that mobility, even just, the warm up, the takedown type warm up where you're sprawling your hips and getting, oh man, I think that feels great for weeks afterwards. What quote from a famous person lives rent free in your mind?
I mean, I do think about John F. Kennedy and about what you can do for your country, not what your country can do for you. Even though he was a Democrat, that's a very Republican kind of thing to say. And maybe that's one of the reasons why he was assassinated. He wasn't an extremist, and very innovative guy that I thought, we all have our baggage, but he was inspirational. And certainly some Ronald Reagan comments, you know, the worst 5 words in the English language is "I'm here to help you" from the government. Um, and those things sit in my mind because I look at politics today and see how bankrupt our country is financially and ethically. And those are two inspirational guys that really those words just resound in my head.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally feel that. What do you think the greatest invention or discovery was in the past 300 years?
Some might say the computer chip. Clearly, that's had an impact. I'm one of those people that firmly believe we've had some extraterrestrial assistance in a lot of our technology. Um, Being from Texas, you were there's a lot of um, videos on things that have happened in Texas. But, you know, I just got back from the Michigan and toured the Ford Museum, which isn't about Fords. Obviously, it's about so many other things: airplanes, cars, technology. But I suppose now, over the last 300 years, that'd be the computer chip.
Yeah, I would agree. That's a significant one. So we'll get into some of our main round conversation here. What tech trends significantly impacted you, your industry, and how did your company respond?
Well, at Ryders Health Management, we actually started late 1990s, 1999 or so, implementing. We patented and implemented a skilled nursing facility medical record system. But like all businesses, there was a dot-com crash and the funding crashed. But we implemented it in our buildings, and it was a phenomenal system. But also in the technology business, they can screenshot your whole program, competitors, and then backwards engineer it. So unless you have massive amount of lawyers like Bill Gates and Apple, your product's going to get copied, and ours did, and it's really became the format for many, many, many companies that offshoot from our. In fact, Newt Gingrich wrote a book and put a chapter in about PRM Soft. It was a software that we developed and patented and used, and it was a great system. But the medical record technology, for some, would say it's a benefit, and for accessibility, it is, and medical records, it is. But with every innovation comes some degradation in the day to day. We see our nurses, who are very valuable and very limited in numbers, spending out of an 8-hour day, 6 hours typing behind their computer. And that doesn't really help anybody but the bureaucrats and the regulators and the lawyers that like to sue. So it's really a challenging time for technology and skilled nursing. I think we're going to see a lot more. And I'm sure that's going to be in one of your other questions. I think in Japan, we've seen robotics enter skilled nursing facilities. There's some pilot projects in the United States, but nothing successful that I've seen. So we're anxious to see what artificial intelligence and robotics will do for our industry. Because we are so highly regulated, it's very, very, very difficult to implement innovations. In fact, we're the most regulated industry in the country, superseding nuclear power plants. It's you can't even replace a roof on your building without going through rigmaroles with the state of Connecticut to get permission to replace a leaky roof. It's quite laughable and tragic what's happened. So the technology, for better or for worse, isn't moving as fast as I'd like to see it in the skilled nursing facility and industry. Obviously, we've seen in the medical industry, many years ago with the Da Vinci machine, using that for prostate surgery, robotics in surgery. But even that is a little primitive today when we're seeing the kind of, I know Tesla has their robot that are not quite ready for prime time, but very good, ambidextrous, intelligent. I know Japan, again, China. There's so many countries where robotics and AI will really help the medical industry.
Mm. Well, what are three technology innovations you're betting on to drive your business growth? Like what three are you really focused on?
Data collection using the internet, using our computers, metrics, uh, all of those things are, they're seamless through there. There's just tons of data to get to. As far as growing our business, the medical industry under the Biden administration is not growing. It's shrinking. Hospitals are going bankrupt. Skilled nursing facilities are going bankrupt. Home care companies are going bankrupt. We also own home care, companion care, long-term care, skilled nursing facilities, and of course, outpatient rehab and subacute care. And I would say all those industries, even though the demands for the population continues, the government has refused to fund, in fact, day-to-day care as well as innovative care. And so trying to grow the business may require diversification, and just using data to get our hands on more financing and more funding and more marketing. My son's in charge of our social media management and recruitment and retention. So that's basically technology based, using different servers and services to recruit staff. But right now, under this administration, and God forbid an extension of this administration, innovations become very difficult, and it is a daily. It keeps me up at night.
Yeah, I can understand that. Um, what are some of the most significant gaps between your digital ambitions? You started talking about that, and gaps around funding, but are there any technology gaps or things that you see that you would like to see closed in order to kind of realize your ambitions today, or how you'd like to care for patients?
Yeah, the technology gap is, I've been waiting for years to get artificial intelligence and robotics involved, because even though, you know, the economy has had its ups and downs, people still don't want to work in healthcare because of, the vaccine mandates that many of us opposed, including me. Uh, and a lot of nurses and nurses' aides said, I'm not going to get the vaccine, therefore I can't work in healthcare. And that really has created a massive shortage nationally. So, in order to grow and provide the quality care, we're going to need robotics. Even though the Biden administration has allowed and encouraged millions and millions and millions of people across our border, many of these people are not registered nurses. They're not licensed practical nurses. They're not certified nurses' aides. And if they ever do, it'll be years before they get to the market to fill the gaps. So I'm hoping and praying that all this technology investment, that we'll be able to have robots deliver food trays, robots to do cleaning, robots to answer call lights and turn in position patients. And not that I want to replace the human contact, but we just don't have any choice. We have to have AI and robotics in our healthcare system, and we need it yesterday. So that's the gap. We have serious staffing shortages. In fact, one of our facilities in Mystic, Connecticut, we've had to shut down admission probably over 100 times in the last 16 months because we don't have the staff. We said we just can't admit we don't have enough staff. And even hiring temporary staff, half the time these temporary staffing agencies don't show up. So how do you take care of a human being when you contract out a temporary service to fill a gap in your staffing and they don't show up? So you have to shut down admissions. So yeah, the gap is manpower, and the gap is only going to be filled by robotics and AI.
Yeah, I would imagine. this is a little bit off script, but I would imagine also, the amount of data that we're able to get from a patient is broader and more continuous than what we've ever been able to get. So, my wife wears a ring, a sensor ring. So she's got her sleep score, she's got her active heart rate. These used to be like somebody had to go in and get a reading. And so I'd imagine analyzing that data when it's a continuous stream. It's just that, the
Well, the company that did that ring also did a watch, and I bought the watch, and I've bought it for my wife and my assistant to see it does all of that, from electrocardiograms to test irregular heart rates to your pulse oximetry to your um but we have found, because I have high blood pressure and my wife has high blood pressure, that the data is not 100% accurate. If you take I have a cuff here. If I was to do a blood pressure, hit the button on this phone, on this watch, excuse me, to do my blood pressure, we've seen variations as much as 100 points. So the technology is there, but it's still early stages. And tell your wife, don't trust it completely. Being a diabetic, it also supposed to take your blood sugar, which it does. We found it off, you know, 10 to 100 points. So that ring is great. And the same company, I believe, that did that ring, I forget the name of it, advertises this watch and that ring. That it will improve, but it's not there yet. And so I can't put it on my patients without opening myself up to litigation. That's why I'm testing it. My wife won't wear the watch anymore because of her blood sugar was well over 100 points difference. Sometimes it's only 8 points off. Some days it's 100. So she stopped wearing the watch, which annoys me, because I says, well, I'm sure they're going to be live updates with these watches and with the ring, just like a Tesla has the over-the-air updates. And we can only hope that technology does improve, but it will.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned heavily regulated. So these are some strategy questions for you. How do you approach risk management when implementing a new technology, like a new sensor tech, or if some advancement for robotics comes in? How do you approach risk management when you're implementing?
Well, risk management would require our insurance companies to be a partner in that rollout of a new technology, of course. Um, I used to own an insurance company, and that's always a tricky thing. But uh, given that if one provider is using this technology, it quickly will and rapidly go to other providers, competitors, because they want to have the edge as well. So I would say involving our insurance company, which you got to treat like a partner, say, what will this technology do? And how will it impact us? Again, that's why I haven't implemented these watches, because they do connect with your phone, as you know, and or they will connect with, and we have looked at quite a few of them. Um, some providers have uh, solicited us with um, all kinds of new technologies. Basically a nurse on a stick, which looks like an iPad with a camera and all that. And you roll it down the corridor, and a doctor remote anywhere in the world can examine the patient. You do their pulse oximetry off the stick, and you do a limited EKG off the stick, and the physician can look at the patient, try and diagnose it. And we have found those to be cumbersome, again, and expensive. But we are seeing since COVID that there is some technology that's being allowed in hospitals and skilled nursing facilities. The problem being that this industry, skilled nursing, is still recovering from a massive hit in funding under the Biden administration. So rolling out new technology is very slow. And again, without consistent staffing, how successful would that technology be? again, our desire to bring in robotics and artificial intelligence.
That's a really interesting angle. Like if you're out there developing some sort of healthcare device, whether it be a wearable or really anything, getting some kind of headway with the major insurance companies would be a guaranteed adoption curve. Like it would just absolutely fuel a mass rollout, because if the insurance company is saying, "Hey, I'll give you some kind of credit for this," then that's going to be the gateway to adoption. That's really insightful. Well, what advice can you share, or how do you think about connecting your roadmap with your overall business strategy? How do you do your planning? And even if you just wanted to like share how you do your kind of quarterly, yearly planning with your team. I just love to hear how different CEOs and business leaders align their team and connect their roadmap and what needs to be done with their overall business strategy.
Well, I tend to spend a lot of time, like everybody, on the internet and on my phone, and I'm also on the executive committee of the Connected Association of Healthcare Facilities. I'm also a registered nurse and a licensed skilled nursing facility administrator. And I was awarded a doctorate as chairman of St. Vincent's College. They gave me a doctorate of humane letters. So, with all that experience, I'm out there quite a bit looking and observing. And when I hear and see something innovative, I'll bring it up to the team. We have monthly board meetings where our chief operating officer, chief financial officer, chief medical officer, in-house legal counsel, and our head of recruitment and retention, my son, and our tech, which is my daughter, serves in our IT department. And we'll talk about these things and talk about implementing and following up on the technology. Looking what competitors do is always, there's that saying, you don't want to be the first one over the hill, because you get shot at a lot, and failure is not an option. So we, with all the challenges healthcare faces, roll out new technology is slow. Now, I did have our chief clinical services coordinator, John, an entourage is very talented, and I've had him review a few technologies, which we were almost ready to adapt. But given the finances, if there is a big cost, we can't do it. As I said, last year, 180 skilled nursing facilities closed nationwide due to the Biden administration's lack of support, and another couple hundred are closing this year and the year before. So we're eventually seeing thousands of facilities close, tens of thousands of patients being displaced. So there's going to be a leveling off at some point, and we're all anxious. Hopefully, the elections will see us stabilize and be able to embrace the newest technologies.
Well, what lessons have you learned from tech initiatives that failed to deliver their expected value?
Don't do it alone. When we spent millions on PRM soft, and even though it was a fantastic system, it didn't succeed because nobody else would buy it, and we couldn't fund the whole system with just our small company. So don't do it alone. I think if you're going to do a brand new innovative technology, try to find a group of companies that would share the commitment. And, the .com crash, even though that was years ago, we all learned a lot of lessons. A lot of companies that had incredible ideas and really were on the cusp of innovation and really a revolution in so many different industries, lost the funding and disappeared. So I would say don't do it alone. Look at the cost. Today, coding is coding. And if you're going to write new code, it doesn't require geniuses. But the other thing, the option of using offshore coding, something that really wasn't an option 24 years ago, 25 years ago. Yeah, you can really farm out a lot of coding. I am a small partner. I only own like 6% of the company. There's a company where we've come out with an app to help innovation with Down syndrome children and integrating like Special Olympics, the kinds of kids that could compete in Special Olympics, special needs children, where the police department, if they get a 911, they need to know what's going on in that household. This is non-institutional support for the community, the police department, the fire department, the EMS. So we've been innovating that product. I've been working with some partners on that for a few years. But again, even that technology, we've had to go international, roll it out in St. Thomas and some of the other islands first, and different parts of the state. At one point, we thought Special Olympics would sign the contract, but you'll also learn with technology, politics gets in the way of innovation. I see it recently with Elon Musk wanting to launch Starship in Boca Chica, Texas. The FAA won't let him do it. He wanted it, so it's politics. Are Ronald Reagan was right when the government says they're here to help. That's a dirty phrase.
Yeah. There was a really great talk. I went to the All In podcast. It's a kind of a group of practically billionaires. I mean, they're all very wealthy guys, and they had Bill Gurley. Bill Gurley was really the main VC that believed in Uber before Uber was Uber, and he did a talk at their live show. I went to their conference, the All In Podcast Summit, and he did this talk. He calls this this corruption. He calls it regulatory capture, and so there'll be and there's some previous work, some really older work where this term is coined, regulatory capture. And he uses Epic as a major example of regulatory capture. So Epic is the kind of, they have a medical records product, and they're kind of the leader in that space. But then all these regulations really describing the features that Epic has already built, like, oh, in order to be a medical records software, you have to have these features. And so his whole kind of shtick, or his thesis, was regulatory capture always benefits the incumbent. And so regulation, or regulatory capture specifically, is an anti-innovation tactic. It benefits the incumbent. And he gives example over example over example, and it really allowed me to put some language to how this corruption of regulation works, where the incumbents, the strong providers. I mean, we used to have tons of telecom companies. Now we have really 2, maybe 4, if you want to stretch it. And telecom regulation benefited the incumbent, sucked out all the competition out of the market, and now one of the largest household bills we have is internet and television. So I totally recommend that talk, because it's a very powerful talk, and he brought the house down with such a clean, really non-political, like very factual, not left, not right, but just straight down the middle concept of how regulation hurts the economy, hurts innovation. And we certainly see that in healthcare, maybe more than any other industry.
Without a doubt. Yeah, that sounds good. I'm hoping the Supreme Court's change about a month ago with the Chevron doctrine being repealed, and stating that government agencies can't just randomly roll out new regulations, but of course we'll have to see what the ramifications are there. I've asked our Connecticut Association of Healthcare Facilities executive director 4 weeks ago or so, when that Chevron doctrine Supreme Court decision came, what the impact would be on state agencies because they're just as bad. I mean, it's incestuous. Um, they this is how bad they are. The rule of thumb, when you say we replace the floor, which we were doing at Green Tree Manor in Waterford, Connecticut, the rule of thumb is if the town it requires you to pull a permit, that's renovation. If the town doesn't care, it's not a renovation. You're just replacing the rug. Well, the state of Connecticut said, no, we consider that renovation, and you have VAT tile under that rug, which every building built pre-1980 had VAT tile in it. They evacuated 69 patients, sent a press release to the press, and made a massive political media show, making an example of my facility in Waterford, Connecticut. It was an absolute disgrace, traumatizing our patients and our staff, nearly bankrupting the facility. And at the end of the day, we tested the air, we tested everything. There was no asbestos problem. She evacuated all those people for no reason, just to prove that she's a bureaucrat and she's in control. She proved her ignorance, and she, this is why I'm excited to see if there is some hope with the Supreme Court decision of getting government agencies to back off their arrogance and total disregard for human life and business, just so they can prove they're in charge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. Well, there was something that you said earlier, but I've lost my train of thought with such a powerful story about like exactly what you're saying is this notion of the regulatory capture. Like the regulations are impacting innovation, and that's not a political story. That's just that's fact every time. How in your organization, how do you cultivate a culture of innovation, especially in such a heavily regulated industry? How do you allow for innovations, really the freedom of thought, the freedom of new ideas? It sounds like you have a heart for your patients and your employees. So how do you lead your culture?
Well, I do that somewhat uniquely. For example, this morning I was at Lord Chamberlain and Lord Chamberlain Manor at 6:45 a.m. so I could see my 11 to 7 shift, my 7 to 3 shift, my social workers, administrators, some patients. And when COVID came in, we immediately looked for innovative systems, and there's kiosks when you walk into the building that you sign in, put your phone number in, and it brings up your name, and it scans your for body temperature, asks you if you have any health issues, and it's very quick, takes 15 seconds. And then I check in, but I listen to staff, because the frontline staff know more about the patients, know more about the challenges, and are going to make most of the recommendations to you. So problem solving is something I try to do hands-on. Tomorrow morning, I'll be at our facility an hour from here in Chester, Connecticut at 6 a.m. to have some staff meetings and listen. And the gamut of discussion goes from, them being upset about their health insurance, or somebody getting overtime and they're not getting overtime, or staffing issues, but they'll also bring out problems that maybe can be solved with technology. And I keep my eyes and ears open for that. And in fact, many years ago, that's why I started PRM Soft and charting clinical systems. Even though we eventually had to put that company down, we used that software for many years. So ears to the ground and listening to patients, listening to everyone we can, that how can we make this better? And that's really where I get my information.
Yeah. So cool. What is an experience that you would share with somebody starting their journey, their career journey, or their digital transformation journey?
Digital transformation journey, as I said, would be try not to do it alone. If you're going to be innovating yourself or adopting new technology, they're two different subjects. If you're going to be patenting and developing a product for your company, then you need to, before you pull the trigger and the concept, look for funding. Proof of concept is not something you're going to be able to do without money. And partners, and both technology partners, financial partners, all require a common commitment, and then you can pull the trigger. Also, if you're going to do it yourself, you got to bring in specialists. I had the concept of charting. Before smartphones even looked like they do today, they had these small things that look like smartphones. I forget who they were developed by, but I wanted to put the charting system on that, and I was ahead of the technology and my concepts. So we ended up burning through millions of dollars. So you need partners, and Bill Gates had partners. Steve Jobs had partners. Everybody gets partners. So try to hold it close to your vest and be the sole owner and sole innovator. Unless you are a Bill Gates and you're a billionaire, it's not likely you're going to succeed. There's too many obstacles. Now, if you're adopting new technology in a business, the technologies are out there, and it's up to the person who's selling you that technology to give you proof of concept. So you'll have ample opportunity to screen this technology. And what you do, if it, meets all the HIPAA compliance on the medical side, you have HIPAA compliance, which was Bill Clinton's biggest blunder. HIPAA compliance, just the technology and security and encryption requirements make anything done in the medical industry extremely difficult. And that gets modified every few years about encryption. So I would say there's many different providers internationally that are adopting new technologies, and you really want to spend some time with them. Either Zoom calls, have them fly in and demonstrate it, have them pilot it at no cost to you. There's plenty of opportunities out there to adopt new technology.
Yeah, I think that's a great call out. Like, they want to make the sell, so they should make you comfortable with the software. You don't have to make their life easier. You can really leverage their support. And then I also think there's a really, and you probably see this, and with your kind of your underlying message of don't do it alone. I'm in some wonderful mastermind groups very specific to what I do and how I do it. I'm sure there are mastermind groups for your particular type of business. And looking out for those, I think, is super powerful, because you can hear what's been tried. I've been able to get very specific details from folks that are at the next stage in business development than me, to say and ask very specific questions. Hey, should I lead the team in this way or this way? Should I organize groups in this way or that way? And get very specific. Well, I tried it that other way, and this is what ended up happening. And so, yeah, the borrowing from folks' collective wisdom is a super missed benefit. I really agree with that. Well, it's been super good having you today. If people liked what you had to share and wanted to connect with you, how should they do that?
My email is very good. Even though I have a few emails, but my personal email is msbriglio@aol.com. It's S as in Sam, B as in boy, RIGLIO @aol.com.
Great. Well, it's really awesome having you. Thanks for being with us.